Hello, this is the editorial of 10th of Feb 2020, which is written by Hars Mandir. So let's begin. Editorial title is A Nation for the Persecuted. India's dismal treatment of the Rohingya must lead to a movement for an inclusive state with an acceptable refugees law. In his historic address to the Parliament of the World Religion in Chicago in 1993, Swami Vivekananda declared, I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth." It is ironical that the political party which conspicuously proclaim its allegiance to Swami Vivekananda has restricted by law about 127 years later after citizenship to people on the ground of both religion and nation. The Citizenship Amendment Act 2090 or CAA 2090 passionately contested by the people across the country by placing these filter of religions and nation remind us urgently of the moral imperative of the expensive and the human refugees law. This must conform to what is finest in India's civilizational ethos and to the morality of India's constitutions. This urgency is underlined further by the decision on the October 2018 of the Indian executive to set back seven Rohingya men. The Supreme Court of India refused to stop their deportations who had been detained in Assam since 2012 to Myanmar. Looking back, it is pertinent to ask why Jawaharlal Nehru, an international statesperson and a leading moral voice in the community of nations, refused to sign the 1951 Refugees Convention relating to the status of refugees. Scholars suggested that whereas he was committed to the principle enshrined in the convention, he was unwilling to legally bind the country to its obligations. The conventions first define refugee as a person fleeing persecution on the ground of race, religion, nationality, social group, or the political opinion. Refugees get legal rights, most important of which are non-refoulement, which prevent states from sending back refugees to the persecution in their home countries. They also get secondary rights such as the education, work and properties, policy and discrimination. India has long argued that even without signing the convention in the practice, it is one of the leading refugees receiving countries. Refugees include Sri Lanka, Tamils, Taiwan from China, Chin minorities from Burma, Myanmar, and Hindu from Bangladesh and Pakistan. It may be legitimately asked that if in practice India has been hospitable to refugees, why does it need a refugees law which conform to the refugees conventions? The answer lies in discriminations in the reorganization refugees and award of the citizenship embedded sometime in the law and rule and at other time in official practice. These include the morally indefensible, indeed shameful decision of the Indian government to send back Rohingya to condition which the International Court of Justice has recently deemed to genocidal and changes in the passport rule even prior to the passage of the CAA, which is in fact discriminated between the people on the basis of their religion. There are many problems with Indian law relating to the refugees. The first of these is that our law does not distinguish between the foreigners and refugees. This means that refugees depend on state discretions, indeed benevolence, rather than inherent rights. The second is that these assume that the executive will act on the principle of the humanism and non-discrimination. This may have been true of an India's led by Nehru government, which follows his have had mixed record. It is certainly not true of government as we have today, which is driven by right-wing ideology, which is hostile of Muslims and which believe that India should be the natural home of the persecuted Hindu but not Muslim. The Rohingya case, in the absence of explicit recognition in Indian law of the category of refugees or of their legally binding right, even the guarantee of the fundamental right to equality and non-discrimination and humanitarian obligation did not prevent India from violating the core principle of non-refoulement, of not sending back a person to situation of the persecution such as those faced by the Rohingya. Let us rewind to the litigation in India Supreme Court challenging the government proposed department of the seven Rohingya in 2018. When seven repatriated Rohingya men were only hour away from the border with Myanmar, right activists who had just come to know of this made a dramatic urgent intervention in the court, pleading that their being thrown mercilessly in the genocide situation we stopped immediately. The Supreme Court bench, which include the then Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, refused to say their deportations, basing its ruling primarily on the brief Union government affidavit which claimed that Myanmar had accepted the refugee as a citizens and men had orally agreed to be repatriated. The court unconditionally refused to stop the deportations despite the transparent unreliability of these claims since the men did not have access to legal counsel nor the UNHCR to determine whether their consent was freely expressed. Also, that they may have chosen the risk only because of the only option they were given to deportations was to identify indefinitely remain in detentions. The media later reported that these men had been detained in the Myanmar for illegal entries and had been given the controversial national verification card that does not recognize their religion or ethnicity, not citizenship. We do not know what happened to them since. Message from ICJ, Indian Chief Justice verdict. The moral culpability of these decisions, both of the Union government and the top court, are further illuminated by the recent unanimous judgment of the International Court of Justice on January 23rd that conclude that the Rohingya face genocidal intent. The case against the Myanmar was brought to the International Court by small West African Muslim nation, the Gambia. It is rejected Myanmar civilian leader Aung San Suu testimony on behalf of her government, where she described the allegation brought by the Gambia as an incomplete and misleading factual picture of the prevailing condition in Rakhine State. The World Court warned Myanmar military against any conspiracy to commit genocide and directed Myanmar authorities to take steps to protect its minority Rohingya population from genocides. For Indian government and Supreme Court, this judgment should be the moment for both introspection and atonement. But this is it will not be. The government has never referred to the Rohingyas as a refugees, but as illegal immigrant, security threat and potential terror threat. They have not been included as eligible for citizenship under the 2019 amendment because of their religions and country of origin. Instead, they are often the subject of communally charged politically stigmatization by the ruling party amid call for expulsion from India of desperately impoverished tiny population of around 14,000 Rohingyas. They are subsisting by picking rage and lowest and labor in dismal, senseless, unsupported by the Indian state. For a framework, India treatment of the Rohingya and the discriminatory CAA must compel Indian committed to India as a human inclusive countries to fight not just for the abrogation of the CAA, NRIC, NPR, Trinity CAA, National Registration of Register of Indian Citizenship, National Population Register, but also for India to bring in a refugee law which conform to international conventions. This would first recognized eligible undocumented immigrant as a refugee based on evidence determined by due process of their persecution in their home countries. This would also assure them a set of blind rights. The most important of these is the guarantee that they would not be forced to return to the condition of persecution, threatening their life and liberty, which are escaped. The second is that they would be assured life of dignity within India, which education, healthcare, and livelihood. Only then would India become the country which Swami Vivekananda was so proud of, a heaven to the persecuted of the world, untainted by the discrimination waged on the religious or nations. So thank you. I hope you will enjoy. Enjoy. You enjoy this today's editorial. So this is all about today's editorial. Thank you.